Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first session of the journey from 75 to 25. My name is Bertha Mastoni, and today I am introducing a podcast for anybody born in the year 1975. I know some of you are asking, why 75? Well, first of all, it's the best year ever. I'm just saying. And those born in 75 out there will agree with me. But more than anything, everyone born in 1975 is turning 50 this year. For myself, I have been excited about this age for about a year and a half. For that period of time, I have been planning how I'm going to celebrate my 50th year. Well, earlier this year, I had a wedding in Zimbabwe. And with that, I had some friends who were also turning 50. And we started talking about this. And I started wondering if the feelings that we were sharing, which mostly were of excitement, were common feelings among people born in 1975. So my one of my guests today is Samkeliso, who's one of the people I was actually with in Zimbabwe, who was involved in this conversation. So as time went on from that conversation, I decided to create a platform where people born in 1975 can come and talk about this big age, 50, that we are entering into this year. How do you feel about it? Are you excited? Are you anxious? Are you scared? Or do you feel prepared? I want
Mm.
to welcome anyone who is born in 1975 who would love to share their feelings to get in touch with me so we can go ahead and have you as a guest on the show. For those who don't want to be guests, join in and listen. If anything, you could find community, you could find somebody who validates your feelings, you could even find something that you didn't know you needed or you knew could be a possibility for you. So I invite everyone, even if you were not born in 1975, please listen, jump on. You might find something that resonates with you. So I invite you all on this journey to find out how people are feeling about this big age 50. So, with that, I am going to introduce my first guest, my very first guest on the show, and that is Mrs. Samkeliso Baxter, who, who lives in Johannesburg, South Africa. She is a mom to two beautiful kids, and we have been friends since our formative years. Our very first year in high school, we have been friends, and over 30 years of friendship has all come to today. So, Samgeli, so how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, B, for having me on your podcast. It means so much to me. And, the wonderful world of actually being 50 years this year. I mean, that is a great milestone. I really appreciate, you taking the time out, to have a chat with me in terms of, what it means. And I'm just looking forward to sharing, some insights and, some emotions and reflections in the years and the decades that have led up to the 50th year. Thank you so much.
No, awesome. No, thank you for agreeing to come and be a trailblazer, really, in this space. So, how are you feeling about 50? I know we've spoken about it, but share. How are you feeling?
B, the most profound feeling that I am feeling about turning 50 is that of gratitude. you know Gratitude, for me, having left home at the age of 17, we finished high school at 16 or something like that. And by 17, I was already on the road, you know. I left mama's house, my mom's house, my mom and dad, and hit the road. Um, and through that journey, it wasn't easy, and
Right.
I was doing my best not to go back to my parents and say, Lord, it's hard out here, I want to come back home. But looking back, I think I did a stint in Botswana, for a couple of years, and then found myself in Johannesburg. I was actually talking to a friend of mine, to say by the age of 19, we had already apartments and, we had jobs and things like that.
All
So
right.
leading up to that, um, there was a lot of, ooh, there was a lot of difficult situations that
Mm-hmm.
I found myself in. Lots of nice times, but difficult situations. And all that I can say has shaped the person that I am today, you know. In terms of how I made decisions around my life, I'm still here, aren't I? So I can say, good decision
Right.
making.
But it sounds like
Yeah.
it really has been a journey. You've
Oh,
put
yeah.
in miles, you've
Yeah.
put in sweat, tears, lots
And
of
everything
laughter.
in between. And
Yes.
everything in between, yeah, so gratitude that I'm here, B. And like I say, the other thing that I would like to add there is, appreciation, appreciation for,
Mm-hmm.
my friends, and when I say friends, I'm talking about, people that I came up with, people like yourself, my girls, they know themselves, um, I appreciate that, the fact that we're still here, we've lost some of our friends, you know, but I appreciate the fact that I still have this circle of friends, where I can pick up the phone at any point in time and my girls will show up. I'll show up for my girls too, you
Right.
know. So it brings a whole lot of, a flood of emotions, For me, when I talk about, my girls, we met and we're teenagers. Now we're half a century. I mean, can you imagine, the what can I say, the loyalty,
Man.
that surrounds all of us, so that's just the journey that we're taking when
No,
we talk about 50.
I really like the focus that you put on friends, really your foundation, the community.
Yeah.
For us to still be talking 30 plus years since we met, for some people I've learned is more like, how are y'all still friends? What do you have in common? But I think that's one of the things that grounds us because
Oh, yeah.
we met and made connections, strong, true bonds at such a vulnerable age.
Yeah.
And I think
And
that has been the foundation of why we've been able to maintain friendships for 30 plus years. And I appreciate you,
absolutely.
friend.
I do. I also appreciate you too, B, and when you say, at that age when we're vulnerable, I would say at the age of innocence,
Yes.
at the age of innocence. I mean, would borrow each other's clothes, socks, whatever. We've really, have known each other at that level, of innocence. We've slept in the same dormitory, sharing, sleeping and living space. Um, Man, there's nothing that beats that, And here we are. From there, we've gone through every level, from that age to where we started dating and where we become mothers. We are, you know, some of us are grandmothers wherever we are, but
Right.
that has really shaped us. And when I look back and say, I am 50, you know, but let me look at where I come from. Let me look at my
Mm-hmm.
life. And those are one of the things, where I really just, appreciate that, I'm here and I've got a good circle of friends, that if in any given time, I know we don't see each other every day, we probably don't see each other for 10 years or whatever, but at some
You
point in
still hold
time,
strong.
we still hold strong. I remember B when I showed up in the States and you didn't even know I was coming. But that's just me. I'm very spontaneous like that.
The world wouldn't be right if you just were not you.
You know what I'm saying?
You know?
So yeah, I mean that's just who we are, and I really really appreciate that. And you know looking at also the fact that I had my daughter at the age of 24. Yeah, my daughter at the age of 24. She's done, she's graduated. I had my son at 33. That's just a big gap. um he's still in high school, but quite independent. you know so when I talk about turning 50, for me, I now have my freedom. Not that I was tied down to anything, but I've my freedom to be able to say, you know what, I can do what I have been meaning to do, because I was I've been a single parent. I mean, that's not a
Right.
secret to anybody. I've been a single parent from the time my daughter was 4 months. So I've literally raised my kids on my own. And that goes with a lot of sacrifices, you know, in the way I behave, leading by example, where I allocate my resources, the single resource that I have, which is my income, how exactly I allocate that, so that my kids have the good life, that I believe they deserve. So at this point in time, being 50 and looking, at this um decade of my 50s, that is my freedom to be able to spread my wings and say, if I want to do whatever, travel, I don't need to, stress, anymore, about, oh, I've got babies that, I need to take. Of course, there's still some level of responsibility, but that is the freedom for me to choose me, finally, to choose myself, to create, beautiful memories, with whatever the Lord has, allocated for me. you know. So yeah,
I
that's
like
that's
that.
that's it, B.
I like that.
Mm.
So, when we talk about parenting, how did you find parenting as a single parent based when you compare it to how your parents parented? Because our generation grew up very differently
Yeah,
compared to what our kids are. And I
yeah,
found I mean, I applied a lot of what my parents did,
yeah.
but because we were raising our kids in a different environment, like
Hmm.
you being a single, both of us really being single parents compared
Yeah.
to us growing up in a two-parent home. How did you find that?
Well, to be quite honest, I I had to, adjust and adapt, because finding yourself, that's not what anybody wants, to be a single parent. But
Right.
when the situation faces you, you got to either choose, am I going to be depressed in this relationship that I'm in, or am I going to choose me and my child? So I can say that, just like you have said, I did really have to apply what how my parents raised me, to my kids. But you know um obviously, we live in a very contemporary world where we can't, they say spare the rod and what's that saying? Spare the rod and whatever,
Spare
spoil
the
a child or something like
yeah,
that,
something like
you
that.
know? Yeah, but I came to terms with the fact that, okay, it's not gonna really apply, in this day and age where you're smacking a kid and whatever. But I really just had a relationship, with my children, especially with my daughter. The fact that she was the only child for 10 years, there's a 10-year gap between my daughter and my son. So the relationship that we have is based on trust. I remember when I got my daughter a phone at the age of 10. I got her a cell phone at the age of 10, and I had a bit of, a backlash on why are you buying a child, a phone at this age and blah, blah, blah. So I said, well,
Hmm.
I trust her and I also trust, and she also needs to trust me. I wasn't the kind of parent, that goes into my children's phones and snips and snoops and checks. Well, okay, because I built that relationship of trust, also had the relationship
Right.
where my children could talk to me. I became a friend, but it's also a bit difficult. You have to manage it properly. Because being
Balance
a
it.
mother, yeah, balance it. Being a mother, this side you are soft, but also you have to draw the line. Because these little things can really pull it. Sometimes you know
Right.
so I had to be tough but also gentle at the same time. So there's that respect, with my children. um and as my son came up as well, yeah, it became a bit tricky when he got into teenage, the teenage years, but we quickly sorted that out. I had to obviously put on my dad hat, put on my dad
The
and said,
balancing of
dude, I'm gonna
mommy and
f you
daddy.
up.
What are we gonna do here? Who do you think you are?
Exactly, with both of us. My kids are
These
kind of like,
boys can try you.
I'm telling you, So yeah, so we've got a good relationship, with the kids, and they pretty much know, where everything is at in terms of, my capacity, especially with the
Right.
schooling and things like that. You know, I've often told them, listen, you only got one shot. I'm sacrificing here, by the way. There's a lot of stuff I've given up, not getting, because I'm putting you through good schools, for example. You know. So at the end of the day, you just got one shot, and they understand that, and we got a good relationship. And same thing that my parents did for me. Put me in a good school. Made sure whatever mess that I did, I made sure that I corrected it.
You learned
And
from your
I
lessons,
learned, exactly. I
right?
learned lessons. I mean, I really gave my parents a lot of headaches. But
Don't say that too loud, so the kids might hear it.
exactly. So, but here I am, today. So yeah, the parenting part, can get a little tricky. And the other thing, was the way I live my life. I couldn't be too reckless. Uh Even though I lived in, whatever, but nothing I did was exposed to my kids, you know.
Right.
So it's just the way I had to live my life. And the thing is, as a single mother, per se, you are
Yes.
living with your children, and
They see.
they see, and you are dating Sam, and then after 3 months,
Yeah.
Sam comes home, and Sam becomes, uba
Daddy for a
ba
minute,
dad,
or
eh?
uncle, or
Yeah,
uncle for
uncle,
for a few months,
exactly.
and then he
And then
disappears.
Sam decides exactly to Sam. So my kids never had, that was never an issue with my
You
children,
know, one of the things I always say is people don't realize that children grow up and they have memories.
Exactly,
Even though a lot of people will make excuses of they're still young, children still grow up and they mimic what they see.
exactly,
So a lot of times when we make these decisions, especially as young parents, because I think we're not looking at the future. So I definitely commend you, and
Yeah,
really myself too, because I was the same way.
yeah.
Commend
Because when you,
us
yes,
for being sensible enough to
yeah,
recognize
yeah.
the future effects of what our actions now can have on the kids.
Exactly, because the next time you tell your child, your daughter, listen, you can't be doing this like mommy, but you are doing it, and I saw you doing it. I learned it from
Right.
you. You understand? So it's very important to lead by example. Even as a leader, I mean, look at it in the workplace, you have to lead by example and make sure that you set an example for your children. That daughter is going to be somebody's other half. That son is going to be a head of a household at some point. And what is it that it is that we are teaching our children? So being 50 and looking back, you know, I say to myself, I think some of you have done pretty well. Your kids very disciplined, kids. You can stand back and say, you know what, yes, I've done well, and just having that openness, that open dialogue with your children. Um, I remember,
So can we say you've raised good adults?
yes, I can say that I've raised good
Yeah.
adults. I can really give myself a pat on my back and say, you know what, these ones, though they are my friends, but they know where to draw their line.
They're friends who know how far they can go.
Ah, shame, they know that, this one, this line, I don't have to cross this line, you know.
So
And yeah,
moving
go
from the
ahead.
kids,
Mm.
how are you with the relationships that you have developed? Because I know you recently got married, so
Oh yeah,
congratulations.
thank you,
And I
thank
know
you, thank you.
that's something that it was, there were choices that you made before you got to this point, right? Relating to the
Oh yeah,
family, the kids, what you wanted to expose them to. So how have
yeah.
your relationships been outside of you taking care of your kids?
Okay. So look, let me just say that, everybody makes, some kind of wild decisions, around their lives, but careful wild decisions, that don't really, have, that impact that is expected, around those, decisions. But when it comes to, when I met my husband, I met my husband, that whole online thing and everything. And obviously the kids, could tell that mommy has, there's somebody there, you know. And things became, serious, when I decided, you know what, I'm catching a flight, I'm going to meet my boyfriend. It sounds crazy, boyfriend.
And where was he
Yeah.
again?
he was in Jamaica, you know.
So just for
And
context, everyone, she left Johannesburg, South Africa to fly to Jamaica
and
to
B, I
meet
know you
this
had,
man.
I know you had me saying like some of, before you check with me first, but the thing is, it felt right,
Yeah,
that's another, podcast for another day, but but
that's another
I
journey.
it's another journey, but I set my kids down, when I came back, yeah, because he proposed. I set my kids down. I said, guys, I have respected you all these years. You've never seen anything untoward, with me. I've respected you, but I have found someone that I believe I can spend the rest of my life with. Not only the kids, but I had to talk to my family as well. I have a brother, that I spoke to my brother, I spoke to my older sister. I've got an older sister. I spoke to my younger sister. I introduced, my husband to all of them. It was that whole online thing. Everything was done online because, it was during COVID and all that kind of stuff. His family, also he introduced me to his family and, vice versa and things like that. But when it came to the children, one thing okay, my daughter, because she's so attached to me, she has this thing that she just doesn't really want to share me with anyone, you know. So it was a bit difficult, with her. But I said, you look, I also deserve to find happiness, have a partner. You guys are gonna all shove off one day and I'm left here alone and I've got nobody. And but one thing that my son said to me was, Mommy, as long as he doesn't hurt you, I am okay. As long as he
I
does
like
not
that.
hurt you, I am fine. That's what my son said, you know. So from then on, it was a bit. And one thing my kids say to me was, Mommy, please don't rush us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've given you the green light that, yes, we've embraced a man living in the house with us, right? Because obviously my husband now had to join me from, Jamaica to South Africa. It just was a sensible thing to do because I have children and he
Mm-hmm.
can work anywhere in the world with whatever he does. And so it was a bit of a journey, the first few months, but right now we're just one big happy family. They've
I
gelled,
love it.
we all get along, but I had to do it right. I had to get my children to say yes, it's okay. I couldn't just impose, my husband on my children. You know.
Well, but that's
So
born out of the relationship that you've fostered with your children.
mm,
And I think coming from where we come from and our backgrounds, personal relationship with parents wasn't something common.
oh, of
Our
course.
parental figures were there to be feared
Yeah.
more than anything else. So I think that's one thing our generation has changed. At least I know from my friends who are turning 50 who were born in 75, that's definitely
Mm,
something I've noticed, a change in how we relate to our kids or allow our kids to relate to us.
absolutely. And for me, I grew up being scared of my mom because I would say that my
Hmm.
mom was the dominant figure in my life. And my dad was cool. My dad, he was just cool. But my mom was the dominant figure in my life. And during school days, even going for a movie was, oh, you can't even go for a movie, you know, and things like that. But I know that after I left high school, she started being, more receptive to, okay, I have a boyfriend and, and things like that. We started having, that relationship, you know. Unfortunately, she left too early. My mom left too early. My mom left when I was 24. When we were really starting to gel, where I would tell her,
Right.
and say, "Oh, Mom, I'm dating this guy, and this, and that, and things like that." And I would forever treasure those few years that we had. And that's one thing that I didn't want for my children. You know,
Hmm.
and as I'm getting older, I see my firstborn, she's more of a deputy parent, so to speak. Whether I like it or not, she has that thing that, I
Sometimes
always,
she tells you what to do.
you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
She's like, and I'm like, this one, I really appreciate her, but she can actually get on my nerves sometimes, but for the most part, I appreciate her, because she saved me from myself sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So look, we have to adapt, the way our children, remember, we're a product of our environment, you know.
Yes, we are.
So when you have children that are being raised now in what is actually this environment, you also need to adapt, but you also need to make sure that, they are respectful, you know. So
Right.
I often say to my son, my son is 16 going for 17 this year, and I say to him, listen, I'm too my work alone, I'm busy, I'm busy. So you have a responsibility. This is your schoolwork. You are accountable. I can't come
Mm-hmm.
after you every 5 minutes. If you've done this, if you've done that, you know what you're supposed
Right.
to do. So you have to hold yourself accountable, you know, in terms of, all the deliverables that you need to do for school and things like that. And it has worked out pretty much, and he's
Those are important
self-managed.
lessons, very
Yeah.
important lessons, because when you go into the workforce, the real world, you are
Mm,
held accountable for your own actions. And if we don't teach that at home, the kids will never get it when they do go out in the
exactly.
world. So good kudos to you for that.
Thank you. You get you raise kids that become adults that are wusses, you know. Um
That goes back to raising children into adults. In that case,
yeah,
those are people who are raising children to remain children. And I think that's the
exactly.
difference of being able to acknowledge and understand that. But you know what?
Exactly.
This podcast is not about the kids, because
It's
we're
about
now
me.
making it about the kids. It's about you. So tell me
Yeah.
about you. What are you looking
Mm,
forward to the most in this second? I don't
well,
want to call it the second stage, but 50 is such a definitive number. It's half of 100. And when we think of life, we always think about living to 100, right? People never think about living to 150. They always talk about living to 100. So for me, this age 50 seems like such a defined time where I feel like I've gone halfway through life. So what does this
yeah.
second half of this predefined second half of your life mean for you? What are you looking forward
Yeah.
to?
So, B, I've never looked forward to peace like I'm looking forward to, now
That's a
when I'm
good one.
turning 50. And the peace that I'm talking about, I'm not talking about, peace because, there's people in my life that are bothering me or whatever. Everybody that is in my life is carefully selected. You see, I think you know me. I'm that kind of person that, look, if we don't gel, then we don't have to. You understand?
You
So
don't
for
force
me,
it.
yeah. So for me, it's the peace that I'm looking forward to, where I say I have done everything that I went to school. I listened to my mom. When I finished my O's, I went back to school. You know, I studied, I did everything that I needed to do to be able to put me in a position where I could be able to make decisions where I say, you know what, right? I am going to have a passive income. Passive income really, where I have whatever it is that is running, that is paying me, and I don't need to work so hard, right? I love traveling. I love traveling. I'm looking forward to just, me and my bay. Sometimes I think
Hey,
this man
Mr.
is just
Braxton Bay.
Mr. Baxter. Hey, honey.
Mr. Baxter. Why am I calling you
Bertha says,
Braxton
hey,
today?
Baxter. Yeah, so well, we can just say, you know what, we love it. I mean, even last night, we decided, what, we're going to a club slash restaurant. We had fun. So it's about me, just living the last of my years. Like you say, nobody wants to. I don't want to live up to 150. I don't want to be a burden to nobody. But most certainly, whatever years that I have left, they're really gonna count. And I am wiser, if you
Hmm.
understand that. I'm wiser. I'm never going to change my personality and my character. I mean, that's just me. That's just who I am. I've always been true to myself. um so I'm looking forward to just enjoying this, just the peace. No drama. Like Mary Blige says, no more pain in the
Oh, you're taking it back.
you know what
And
I'm
it's funny
saying,
how listening to those words back then, I think they
Mm-hmm.
resonate more now
Oh
because
yeah.
of where we are in our lives. You've gone through the drama. You've gone through
Yeah,
all that, and now you're making choices to say, I'm safeguarding my peace because that's
exactly.
what's important to me.
Over and
I
above
love that.
everything else. And the confidence, the confidence to be able to make decisions. Right now, there's no room for hemming and humming when it comes to,
Hmm.
my life. So, you see, me as Samu Baxter, I'm no longer Samu Baxter.
Say
Right.
that one more time for the people in the back.
I am no longer Samu Mncube. I'm Samu Baxter. Yeah. I left my father's house. Yeah, the way I left my father's house, it's in a legal way. But I do not have regrets, B. You know, uh, everything I've engaged in, I can't even say, what I ever regret. Okay, if it was a regret, then I'll say it was a beautiful mistake, but
It was a
I've lived my
lesson.
life. Yeah, a
It
lesson.
was a lesson. You drew
Exactly,
learning from that. And
exactly.
that's the experience that allows you
Yes,
to have that
yes,
that peace.
exactly. So I always, even I was telling my husband yesterday, I was like, you see now, we have no room to say every day that we live must be a beautiful day. It must be a day to remember. You understand? You can't waste time because we know that we're gonna go anyway. Everybody's gonna go. But you know what? Every day of my life must be a fun day. Must be a day of productivity. Must be something
Hmm.
where when I am gone, you know, when people talk about Samo, they talk about somebody who mm, actually made a difference in their lives. You understand? So when I
Okay.
go looking forward to 50, now I've given back to communities. You understand? I've given back to communities, but I want to do more, to empower others so that they can empower themselves. There's a lot that we need to do. My job as a business coach, as a skills development practitioner, as an entrepreneur, and all those kind of things. You know, I want to make sure that we have a society that will be able to take care of themselves. You
Mm.
understand? There's a saying that says something like fishing or whatever. Teach a man to fish
You can
or
teach a men how
something.
to fish, and they have food
Yes,
for life.
give fish or whatever. Sorry, sorry, but yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, fish. Give a man to fish, you'll eat. Give a man fish, you'll eat for a day. Teach him how to fish, you'll eat for a
And
lifetime.
he'll eat for life. So
Exactly.
self-sustainment
Yes,
is really what you're trying to teach.
yeah. So for me, it's to, and this is something I learned from my mom. My mom was a community development a builder. You understand? And I saw how much that brought her joy. And I saw how many lives she touched, you know? So I want to continue doing that, but at my own pace, at my own pace.
So you're
So
charting your own way,
exactly, I'm chatting my
but
own way.
in doing that, you're paving ways for others. Is really what you're doing.
Exactly,
You're doing it your
exactly.
own way, but you're also creating a space for others. I really like that. I
Yeah.
think one of the things I admire the most about you is something you said earlier, the fact that you've always been you. You've
Mm-hmm.
always known who you are, and you've always been your genuine self. And I can definitely attest to that when it comes to you because you have been consistent in the 30
Yeah, of
plus years I've known you.
course.
You
And I'm that.
always look at things from a positive spin,
Yeah, yeah.
and no matter what's
And
going on, go ahead, sorry.
no, 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 no. Thank you so much for that. But I was just about to say, I'm that friend you also don't put on loudspeaker. When I call, tell me I'm on
That
speaker.
is so true. We need to vet the conversation before it's open to the public because this girl can be saying some wild and crazy stuff, but it
I'm
wouldn't be
telling you.
you if that wasn't the
Uh,
case
of course, but
because you've always been true to yourself.
yeah, I've been true to myself, and also just I'm just loyal. I love my. If I say I'm with you, I'm with you. You know.
Yes.
Um, if I say I'm with you, I'm with you. We can. Oh my goodness,
She's
we
the
can
kind
go
of
to
friend who
war.
would ask, I'm in trouble. And she says, do I need to bring a shovel? That's the kind of
You know what
friend
I'm saying?
Samu is. Like, what do we need to do to bury this body?
Do you need? Do you have shit to bury or not?
Listen,
So
what do we need to do? I already have a place where. So that's the kind of loyalty this woman portrays. But
I'm
listen,
telling you.
we're coming up to the end, and just to wrap up, what
Yeah.
advice would you give your 20-year-old self based on all the lessons that you've learned on this journey to where you are today?
Yeah, so if I look back, my 20-year-old self, I'd say, Samu, focus, 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 Um, look, there's like I said, I don't live my life on regrets, you know, but there's stuff I could have done better. When I look
Always.
back, I could have done some things differently. I could have done things better. But my 20-year-old self, um, have fun, but focus, you know. It's easier to focus than, to try and, run against time, so to speak, you know. But there's pretty much nothing I would change, about my 20s. Everything was done, based on, resolute decision making.
Yes.
Um, and I would always say stand on business,
Oh, that's a
So
big
that's
one.
just, yeah,
Well,
that's
thank
just,
you so,
yeah.
so much for gracing us today and being the very first guest on this journey to 50. You might hear from Samu again in the future because I know she has a lot to impart just from knowing her personally. But I really do appreciate who you are. And as I said, you are that friend. And I am thankful for having you in my life.
Thank you so much, B. Did I tell you I love you? Have I told you lately that I love you?
She even sings to me. But with that, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. This is something that we definitely want to be international, and we want various backgrounds, wherever you are on this journey to 50, and you were born in 1975. We welcome you to be part of this conversation. You can contact me at brtdmsn@gmail.com. And this will be available on different platforms. And there's a Facebook page that's going to be created specifically for this. And you can find these recordings and you can contact me there as well. So until next time, everyone, have a great 2025.
Oh, thank you, B.
Bye.